Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. number 15, written by Matt Kint, art by Alberto Ponticelli. This is a tie-in to the RotWorld event going on right now, and last issue we had Frankenstein going across the world, attacking some titans, and getting pieces of this machine, and the very last titan he needed to attack was literally this massive, like, island-size one, and he was approached by some robot women, because robot women. So he's talking to Nina through like the comms, and she's like, "Hey, do you have the last piece? Is everything good? What's going on?" And he's like, running into some issues, but we're doing what we can." And we see Frankenstein on the back of this huge titan with these robot women trying to fight against it, and they're like, "Hey, do you have a way of actually killing this beast, robot women, because it doesn't seem like cutting and shooting at it's doing much of anything." And they basically say, like, "Look, here's the thing. We became robots in order to live beyond the rot in a way that, like, the rot couldn't affect us. But yeah, our world's kind of gone, so we're going to sacrifice ourselves in order to give you a fighting chance." And they all, like, fuse together Voltron style, except in a melted down sort of way, and become this like 40-foot long golden sword that is able to cut through the Titan and finally kill it. And they even say here, it's like they literally could have become anything. They could have become like a self-sustaining ship that could just fly out of Earth's atmosphere. But the rot corrupted their minds, and all they could think of was a weapon. So Frankenstein goes to town, cuts up the Titan, and gets the last piece of the machine. And then it takes him a few weeks before he finally makes it to the rendezvous point of Monument Valley in the desert. And when he finally gets there, he's being chased down by this whole army of rot people led by Victor Frankenstein, who was, I guess, a previous avatar of the rot. And he's like, "Okay, guys, I have the piece, but we gotta go, like, right now." And as he arrives, his horse is taken over by the rot. It's unable to continue on. And Khalees is down at the bottom waiting to basically run diversion. He's going to sacrifice himself in order to get Frankenstein up to the top of the pieces. So he fights back the army of the rot as Frankenstein makes his way to the bottom of one of the mesas. He has no way of getting up to the top quickly, but then I just said her name, whatever her name was, comes down and grabs Frankenstein with a jetpack and flies up to the top of the mesa so they can start to get their stuff together. Nina, that was it. So they get up there, and Frankenstein is like, "All right, we got to get the machine put together. We got to do what we can. We have to save these people." And Nina just tells him to shut up for a second, and they hug. And so they start setting up the machine of the soul grinder as fast as they can. And as they do so, the rot starts climbing up the side of the mesa, and Frankenstein's doing what he can to knock him down. But eventually, Victor shows up, and it's like, "You can't touch me, Frankenstein. Like, I am beyond your touch." And Frankenstein's like, "Yeah, well, you can't hurt me with the rot either, so I guess we're at a stalemate." And he's like, "Not exactly." And so Victor goes over to Nina and starts, killing her, using her to corrupt the rot. And Frankenstein's like, "Nope, stop it right now." And he tries to attack Victor. It obviously isn't working as he continues to kill Nina more and more. And then it turns out that Victor apparently has been evolving to some extent in that his attacks are actually able to start hurting Frankenstein. It starts burning away his flesh. But in the moment that both Nina and Frankenstein have their hands on Victor, they pick him up and they take whatever minuscule soul he has left in this rotten form and throws it into the soul grinder. But it comes at the sacrifice of also Nina going in as well. So both Nina and Victor go through the soul grinder, and she comes out the other side with the full stitched up look. Basically, she's now undead. She is just like Frankenstein. So Victor's gone, the rot stops attacking them, and all the human survivors that were up top on this Monument Valley with them, they go through the soul grinder as well and become basically Frankensteins as well. And the final we see that the big thing here is now Frankenstein has his own army, immune to the rot, and he will be known as King Frankenstein. And as on the final page here, sort of an epilogue, they have them all moving through the desert on undead horses, and they're making their way towards the Red Kingdom, the last holdout that they think life was going to be in San Diego, as we've seen in Animal Man's book. And they're hoping that it's going to be a good place, as Nina's narrating, to be safe, because Nina has Frankenstein's kid. She's pregnant. That's crazy. I really like this. I think, here's the thing. I thought this was going to be stretched over 2 issues, because there is one more issue left of Frankenstein. But yeah, it turns out that's just not going to be related. That's going to be a totally separate thing, which is insane to me. But I think this did a good job. It felt paced right. Like, we had an issue just focused on taking out the behemoths. We had an issue focused on getting to this final location. I think that it was a solid arc here to wrap up the story. Clearly we have one more. I'm curious to see if that's going to be set post RotWorld, if it's just going to be kind of a intermediary story. I don't know, but it's going to be something. Overall, this book has been enjoyable, and I think this last arc was better than the arc before it, because I had some problems following that. This one was very much cut and dry, easy to understand, and it was a good tie. Genuinely, I think the best part about it is that it's a solid tie-in. It expands the world that was built in the event while not being necessary on its own, but still a good story. So I'm going to give this one, I'm going to give it an 8, and I think a lot of that also comes down to that last page reveal, because that's good setup for just future stories, that Frankenstein has a new kid, because they established that Frankenstein's old kid basically had to be put down. So there's a new child, and that's going to be super interesting to see. So 8 for this, really enjoying it.